Even in a crowded room, I felt alone. I didn't talk about it to anybody. I had contemplated suicide as well. Why am I going through this? I'm a Christian. I should be skipping down the road. Does that mean that my faith in God is weak? I'm Simon Watson. I'm 40 years of age. I'm a Christian fella. Not always been a Christian fella. Before that, came up with an ordinary upbringing, Church of Ireland upbringing, being brought to church, Sunday school, the usual steps. I had a great family, very blessed, mum and dad and my older brother, and I have two sisters, an older sister and a younger sister. Through secondary school, started to go out, started to maybe drink a wee bit before I was meant to be drinking. Always had a bit of an attitude here and there, liked a bit of a fight once in a while. I never liked to back down from anything. Then just hit the level where I got confirmed. So I thought, once I'm confirmed, that's church over, I'm gone, because that's what I would have saw other people doing. So started going out then on Saturday nights, started to drink a bit more, started to spend my Sundays just hangovers and that sort of thing. Yeah, that carried on for years. Never thought about God. Always thought, I'm the master of my life. I know what I'm going to do. I don't need anybody telling me what I'm going to do. I met my now wife, Melissa, and she was at uni. She would have went up to Jordanstown to go to uni. So whenever she was away at uni, I was able to work, drink. I used to even go to the pub during the weeks to watch football and that, and I was drinking during the weeks. I've sampled a bit of drugs as well here and there, but praise God, nothing ever took a hold of me. So the time went on, it was just the same old thing, the same old thing, the same old thing. Melissa and I got married, and happiest day of my life, as everybody would say. We actually moved to Clogher, because Melissa was working in the Royal. It was challenging because we were traveling so much. We weren't seeing a lot of each other so much. And I always had this stereotype of a Christian. If somebody had said to me, what is a Christian? And I would have said, an old person with drabby clothes and no fun. Well, when we moved to Clogher after we were married, there were two couples, both living on either side of us. They were the same age as us. Both couples were Christian couples. So that sort of opened my eyes to what Christian couples were, because the two guys both played rugby, hardy guys. And I always thought, Christians would be wimps. They were just great guys, two really, really, really great guys. So they sort of opened my eyes to what Christians could be. Now, I still didn't want anything to do with Christianity. So the years went on, and we got to know the two couples more and more. And Melissa actually became a Christian before I did. And there was times where she would say, oh, will you come to church for me? And I'd be like, no, it's Sunday, I'm lying in. I worked all week. I don't have time for church. That's basically what my feeling was. And I tested Melissa in her faith in those early stages where I'd be constantly picking at her. I'd be constantly, asking all these really awkward questions, putting her on the spot, contradicting things that she was saying. And I just give God the glory that He gave her the strength to withstand the devil using me to pick at her, especially when she was so young in her faith. They had started up this men's group. And I remember Melissa coming to me and saying, oh, Simon, what about trying the men's group? I was like, I'm not going to a Christian men's group. They'll all be crying and hugging each other and, saying everything will be all right. I am not comfortable with that whatsoever. And she kept asking me, and I was like, no chance. I want nothing to do with those Christian boys. The months went on and on and on, and I was actually heading away. I'm a big Liverpool fan, and two mates of mine and myself went over to watch a Liverpool match. That night after the game, we were standing in a couple of pubs in Liverpool, and it was buzzing. The crack was good and all this, but I was standing at the bar, and I had a pint in my hand, and it was just people watching. And I just thought to myself, is this as good as it gets? Is this it? If this is as good as it gets, then it's pretty sad. So I came back and I started to ask questions of people. And there was a guy who I used to work with, and his sister tragically passed away in a car accident. And I remember being at her wake, and a Christian girl loved Jesus so much. It didn't feel like a normal wake. There was something about it. Yes, the family missed their daughter, but they kept saying she's in glory now. She's not worrying about us. She's in a better place and all this here. And I was like, what is that all about? So I was asking questions of her brother, and he was telling me what they believed, that she was now in glory with Christ. So that got me asking more questions of people. Like, I even worked with a guy who was an atheist. I asked him, what do you believe? He says, Simon, it's easy. When you're dead, you're dead. That's it. That's it. There's nothing else. That's it. And that really hit me, because I was thinking, well, is this as good as it gets? I was searching for something. I was filling it with like drink and having fun with my mates, and even the odd fight and all this here sort of crack. But nothing ever just was enough. So I eventually gave in to Melissa, and I went to the Christian men's meeting, and I was so surprised. I thought it would be filled with old men, but there was young guys there. They were even better crack than my non-Christian friends. They were just so happy to see you. So over the couple of months, I got to know the guys. I got to really look more into the Bible. God was patient. He waited for me to come to him. He didn't turn me away. And one night I got on my knees and I asked Jesus to be my saviour. It's always that thing you hear people saying, oh, a load was lifted. It was. It really, really was. And I was so on fire. I was so on fire for God. I would tell people now that I would say, oh God, right, I'm on fire for you. Use me now. Use me. I am yours, so use me. Thinking that God would just download the Bible into me, that I could recite the right verse to the right person at the right time, and it would have an amazing impact on that person's life. But it didn't work like that. So about 2 years into my spiritual life, I went through a difficult time of depression. Even in a crowded room, I felt alone. I didn't talk about it to anybody. I didn't even tell my wife about it. And I let that go on and on and on. And it was over a period of 2 to 3 years before it actually came to a head. I had contemplated suicide as well. I had a plan. I was a Christian at this time, and I felt, why am I going through this? I'm a Christian. I should be skipping down the road. But God doesn't promise that we won't have these trials, these difficulties, but he does promise that we won't go through it alone, that he will walk through that valley with us. But I didn't understand the plan that he had for me. The church that we go to, I was coming out one Sunday morning. One of the elders actually was at the door, and he said, oh Simon, how are you doing today? And I couldn't answer him, and I just broke down. And then over the next day or two, that body of Christians just came in round us. That fellowship just came in round us. Not only myself, but my wife and my kids as well. That just really opened my eyes to what Christianity should be, what a body of believers should do for each other. Whenever somebody is struggling, we should be there together. We should be lifting them up. We should be fighting a fight with them. So over the period of time, I did seek medical help as well. It was a very difficult thing, because I thought, if I seek medical help, does that mean that my faith in God is weak? But one of the older elders of the church said, Simon, God puts these people in place to help, whether that's a medical person to take medication for a season, then so be it. So I did. I got medication that got me through that season. People would often ask me, well, what's the difference between the Simon then, who was a Christian, and the Simon now? And the difference is my relationship with God. Back then, I wasn't reading my Bible enough. I wasn't praying to God enough. I didn't trust God enough. Being young in my faith, I didn't believe that God really can do what he says he'll do, what he promises he'll do. I suppose I doubted when I was so on fire for God that I wanted him to give me the tools to do his work. And then I ended up going through this dark valley. But it's funny how God works, because a couple of years after, with my profession, I'm very lucky that I'm invited into people's homes. And then whenever I was in this home of this lady, and I just knew something wasn't right. She was very anxious, very unsettled. I just felt God saying, "Ask, Simon, ask." So I said to her, "Are you okay?" And she says, "You know what? I'm not." And I said, "Well, I'm about to finish the job here now. How about you stick on the kettle and we'll have a chat together?" And we had a chat and she shared, and she actually allowed me to pray with her. And coming away from that house, I actually had to pull in and give God the glory, because he had answered my prayer. I asked him to equip me with the tools that he wanted me to have to do his work. He let me go through my own personal struggles so that I could recognize that in other people. Although her situation was different from my situation, I could still understand the pain she was going through, the loneliness she was going through, the emptiness she was going through, and the self-loathing really that she was going through. And the amount of opportunities that I've had to speak with people about my own mental health, about their mental health, and be able to tell them what I've come through my relationship with Jesus Christ, has been amazing. And God surprises me every day. Every day there's something new. One of my favorite verses that I would turn to and read a lot is a promise from God, and it's found in Isaiah 43, and it's verse 2, and it says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, and the flame shall not consume you." And I just find that is just such a promise from God. My wife asked me one time, what do you hope to achieve? And what I hope to achieve is that day whenever I come face to face with Jesus and with God, that they don't say, "We never knew you," but they say, "Good and faithful servant." That is what excites me, and that's what I strive for, is to be more like Christ. Less of Simon, more of God, more of Jesus. And yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell.